We are now getting into the thick of it in terms of the 2025 college football playoff race, and in today's video, I want to talk about 14 teams that I think are dark horse playoff contenders. Some of them I think have a real shot at getting there, while others would have to have a lot of help and would have to do a lot of work to get there. Obviously, we're to go through who the teams are, what they've done so far, and what the rest of their schedule and season could look like. But before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you to support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's go ahead and get started and talk about some dark horse playoff contenders. Okay, so this team might be the most dark horse on the list, and that is the Cal Golden Bears. Nobody expected Cal to be decent this season, as I personally thought they would be second to last in the conference, only behind Stanford. Well, Cal has ended up doing pretty well, as true freshman quarterback Jaron Sakavatelli has been really good for them. He ended up leading them to 3 straight wins against Oregon State, Texas Southern, and Minnesota, before having losses to both San Diego State and Duke. Obviously, those losses are not great, but they now have wins against Boston College and North Carolina, which are also really bad. Yeah, the body of work for Cal is not great, but what happens if they win out? They will have wins over Virginia, Louisville, and SMU, who are 3 respectable teams, and they would have a 10-2 record. At that point, it would definitely be dicey if they actually get in, and it also would depend on the ACC race. If they were to win out, they would probably make the ACC title, so who knows. Either way, Cal is definitely a dark horse playoff team, but I would not put my money on them getting there. The second team I want to talk about is a team that Cal played, and that is the Minnesota Golden Gophers. PJ Fleck always has Minnesota in a spot to compete, and it's been no different this season. After losing Max Brosmer to the NFL, redshirt freshman Drake Lindsey has been really good for them at quarterback. So far, he has led them to 5 wins against Buffalo, Northwestern State, Rutgers, Purdue, and Nebraska. Obviously, the only decent win there is against the Cornhuskers, and they also have losses to Ohio State and Cal. The Cal loss doesn't look bad now, but it could towards the end of the season. To finish out the schedule, they'll play against Iowa, Michigan State, Oregon, Northwestern, and Wisconsin. Honestly, if they went out, they would go 10-2, and even though they would likely miss the Big Ten championship, they would have a case at getting an at-large bid because they would have beaten Oregon in the process. A lot has to go right for Minnesota, but they are a dark horse team for this year's bracket. The third team I want to talk about is the Arizona State Sun Devils. Before the season, if you would have told people they were a dark horse playoff team, they would have called you crazy, because many thought they were the favorite to win the Big 12. Unfortunately, things have not gone according to plan for them, as they ended up blowing it in Week 2 against Mississippi State, and that put them behind the 8 ball. Had they won that, they'd be in a little bit better spot, but they've also gotten a little bit of luck on their side. They beat Baylor and TCU both by just 3 points, and then this past weekend, barely held on against number 7 Texas Tech. They also have a loss against Utah, and so far the Sun Devils are 5-2 at 3-1 in the Big 12. Sam Leavitt's health is going to be crucial for them down the stretch, and Jordan Tyson might be the best receiver in all of college football right now. ASU would likely have to win out if they want to make the playoff, but luckily they'll have 2 chances for good wins against Houston and Iowa State before beating up on the bottom of the conference in West Virginia, Colorado, and Arizona. ASU probably needs to get to the Big 12 championship to feel somewhat safe, and I think there's a chance they get there. Speaking of a team who I personally think should have been in the Big 12 instead of the ACC, we have the SMU Mustangs. In year 1 last year, Rhett Lashley brought the Mustangs to the college football playoff, and after a slow start, they are hoping to bounce back and get back to the playoff again. They ended up having a double overtime loss to Baylor, in which they easily could have won, and then they ended up getting beat soundly by TCU on the road. They have wins against East Texas A&M, Missouri State, and then 3 conference wins against Syracuse, Stanford, and Clemson. While they don't really yet have a signature win on the schedule, the Mustangs are 3-0 in the conference, which puts them in the driver's seat to going to the ACC title, which gets them the auto bid. SMU still has a couple of good teams left to play, as they'll face off against Miami and Louisville, but both of them come at home. Wake Forest, Boston College, and Cal are the other 3 teams, and we still don't know how good Cal is. Ultimately, I think SMU will probably end up going 9-3, which will leave them short, but if they can somehow find a way to win that Miami game, that all of a sudden puts them in real contention for a playoff spot. Turning our attention to the first Group of 5 team on the list, I want to talk about the James Madison Dukes. After being a really good FCS program, Curt Cignetti brought them to the FBS and had a ton of success. They were really good a couple of years ago, and it looks like JMU is back to their old ways already. After losing to Louisville in Week 2 by 14 points, JMU has now won 5 straight games. Those victories came against Liberty, Georgia Southern, Georgia State, Louisiana, and Old Dominion, and putting up 63 on the Monarchs is decent for their resume. They also beat Weber State in Week 1. Honestly, I don't think James Madison has a great chance at getting to the playoff, as they would need a lot of help, and they would need the American schools to fall apart, and then both UNLV and Boise to also fall apart. To finish the season, they have Texas State, Marshall, App State, Wazoo, and Coastal, and while I think they should be favored in all 5 of those games, 11-1 probably wouldn't be enough to get them into the playoff, but as I said, if they can somehow get some help, maybe they can squeak in and get that last auto bid. Going back over to the ACC, let's talk about the Louisville Cardinals. Jeff Brom has done a great job building up the program, and after returning to his alma mater, he's been one of the most successful coaches in the ACC. So far this season, they only have 1 loss, and that was in overtime to Virginia, who's currently one of the better teams in the conference. They ended up beating number 2 Miami on the road last week, giving them a huge signature win, and their victory over Pittsburgh is looking better each and every week. They also have that win over JMU. Miller Moss has been a great plug-and-play quarterback, and Louisville is starting to find their stride. They have a chance at winning the ACC, as their schedule isn't horrible to finish the season. Games against Clemson and SMU in late November will be interesting to watch, but they should beat Cal, Virginia Tech, Boston College, and Kentucky, and that would get them to 9 wins, and then in that case, they would really need to find a way to beat SMU. I think Louisville's best shot, though, is just getting to the ACC title and winning it all and getting the auto bid, but if they lose a game they shouldn't, then all of a sudden things become a lot more dicey for them. One of the surprises out of the Big 12 this year has been the Houston Cougars. Early on in the Willie Fritz era, it looked like Houston was going to be left behind, but Fritz has them off to a 6-1 record so far, and they are currently 3rd place in the Big 12. They made a couple nice additions of Tanner Koziel and Connor Wiegeman, and so far this season, they only have 1 loss, which is to Texas Tech. They have wins against Oklahoma State, Arizona, and Colorado, and again, nothing really pops off the page, but they have beat pretty much everybody on their schedule, and they'll have a couple of opportunities to finish the season. They face off with Arizona State on the road this Saturday, and then we'll have games against both TCU and Baylor. If Houston wins out and goes 11-1, then they'll have that signature victory over ASU, and will also get a chance to play for the auto bid in the Big 12 title, but if they lose in that, then it will be a close call. For now, though, I consider Houston more of a dark horse, as I'm not sure if they're going to win their last 5 games. We will now get to our second Big 10 school in the number 25 ranked Michigan Wolverines. I know many will say they don't deserve to be on the list, but Michigan still has an outsider's shot at getting in. They are currently 5-2, and so far have losses to both Oklahoma and USC, which are the 2 best teams on their schedule. But you guys all know exactly what I'm thinking here. If Michigan ends up winning out, they will have finished with a 10-2 record and a win over the number 1 team in America. I have no clue if Michigan's going to find a way to pull it off again, but let's just say they do. In that case, they'd be 10-2 with a win over Ohio State. I'm not sure if they would make the Big Ten championship in that scenario, but even if they don't, they'd still probably have the resume to maybe squeak in at the end. For now, though, Michigan is still a dark horse, and beating Ohio State is going to be very difficult for them. Up next, we're going to talk about another Big 12 team, and this will be the Cincinnati Bearcats. They have had a very interesting season, as after their Week 1 loss against Nebraska, I thought Scott Satterfield was done. I thought 3 straight losing seasons were going to be on the horizon for Cincy, but now they're ranked number 21 and 6-1, and are currently 1st place in the Big 12. They have rallied off 6 straight victories against Bowling Green, Northwestern State, Kansas, Iowa State, UCF, and Oklahoma State. Obviously, they haven't really beat any heavy hitters in the Big 12 so far. I also don't really know who's all that good in the Big 12. They'll get a couple of opportunities in the back half of the schedule, as they still have Baylor, Utah, BYU, and TCU, which all should be near the top of the conference, and Cincinnati will have their work cut out for them. I think the Bearcats would probably have to win out in order to get a playoff spot without winning the Big 12 championship, so they are in a similar position to a lot of other teams on this list, and that's why I have them as a dark horse right now. Brendan Sorsby is playing out of his mind at quarterback and deserves more attention, and we'll see how things play out. While Vanderbilt is one of the top stories in college football this year, I'm not ready to crown them as a legit playoff contender. I thought LSU was a bit overrated, and that South Carolina win no longer looks that good. They ended up losing to Alabama for their 1 loss of the season, but I also don't want to take away from what Vanderbilt has accomplished, as they are not exactly a winning SEC program. They have a gauntlet to finish the rest of the season, as they'll face off at home against number 15 Mizzou, travel to number 22 Texas, and also have number 17 Tennessee on the road. Those 3 games are all going to be quite challenging for them, and I think they only end up winning one of them, and their best chance is probably against Mizzou, which I hope not because I'm a Mizzou fan. Auburn also might be fighting for their lives, and who knows if Kentucky will end up showing up. Vanderbilt needs to go 10-2 if they want to make the college football playoff this year, and they have the schedule and the path to do it, but for now, I still consider them more of a dark horse because they're Vandy. Getting to our second group of 5 team on the list today, let's talk about the North Texas Mean Green. Before Memphis lost, I thought there was pretty much no chance at North Texas making the playoff, but now in my opinion, they actually have a path. So far, they have beaten Western Michigan, Lamar, Washington State, Army, South Alabama, and UTSA. None of those wins are really all that great, and they did blow their best chance against number 24 South Florida, but they still have a couple of opportunities left on the schedule. They'll face off with an undefeated Navy team, and then play 4 of the worst teams in college football. I don't necessarily think North Texas needs a great schedule to finish the year, as no matter what, they just need wins and they need help. They need to go 11-1, they need to win the American Conference, and they need some other teams to lose along the way. That would be their ticket to the college football playoff, and that's why for now they are definitely a dark horse team. The first of our final 3 teams I want to talk about is my Missouri Tigers. Currently, the Tigers are ranked number 15 and have a 6-1 record, but they've been cutting it close recently. They ended up beating Auburn in double overtime in a game that neither team really wanted to win, and then also survived against both Kansas and South Carolina. It still doesn't matter though, because Mizzou has 6 wins, and their one loss is by 3 to right now the hottest team in college football in Alabama. There are definitely some concerns as Mizzou's passing game and quarterback play has regressed, but they honestly have a good enough schedule and resume to get themselves to the college football playoff. It'll start with a road trip to a top 10 Vanderbilt team before hosting number 3 Texas A&M. They'll also have to travel on the road against number 13 Oklahoma, and then have games against Mississippi State and Arkansas. Honestly, I think Mizzou should beat both Mississippi State and Arkansas, and to feel solid, they would need to win 2 of the 3 games against A&M, Vandy, and Oklahoma, and at minimum just one of them to have some sort of chance. There will definitely be a 9-3 team from the SEC that gets into the playoff, and will it be Mizzou? I don't know. They may not have the resume for it, but they have the path to the playoff, and that's why they're currently a dark horse. Honestly, the biggest shocker on the list today is probably the Virginia Cavaliers out of the ACC. Virginia has been a poverty program for the most part, and besides one good season in 2019, they've never been nationally relevant. Finally, under Tony Elliott, they have broken out in 2025, and they're led by their new quarterback Chandler Morris, who is super tough. Their only loss of the season comes against NC State in a game that wasn't a conference game, and they have wins over Stanford, Florida State, Washington State, and then a big one over Louisville. While they have been winning these games by the skin of their teeth, it doesn't matter. Virginia is 6-1, undefeated in the conference, and now has a real path to the playoff. Their last 5 games come against North Carolina, Cal, Wake Forest, Duke, and Virginia Tech, and honestly they should be favored in each one of those games, but I'm sure one of those road games will trip them up. My personal take is that Virginia probably goes 10-2, and at that point they'd be sweating it out, but it might still be good enough for them to get to the ACC championship game, which would then give them a chance at an auto bid. We'll see. And the final dark horse I want to talk about today is the TCU Horned Frogs. They are projected to be one of the top Big 12 teams going into the season, and led by their star quarterback Josh Hoover, they have been pretty solid. They have 2 losses against Arizona State and Kansas State, and while that K-State loss isn't great, they're still 5-2, with wins over Baylor, Colorado, SMU, and North Carolina. Their best win right now is probably against the Mustangs, but TCU still has an opportunity to boost their resume. They play Iowa State, BYU, Houston, and Cincinnati, which is an opportunity for 4 quality wins, and if they can end up at 10-2 with that resume, they might be able to get in without getting an auto bid. We'll have to wait and see, but TCU is still in the hunt. But yeah, today I talked about 14 teams who in my opinion are dark horse playoff contenders, and I'm sure I could have added probably 10 or 15 more. Who do you think should also be on the list? Who do you think will make the college football playoff this year? And what topics should I cover next? Be sure to let me know down below, leave a like if you want to support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out one of the videos on the end screen. Hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.